phone rang while the woman beside me was bleeding onto the cafe floor, and the first thing the caller said was, "Whatever you do, don't let her know you answered." I stood frozen between overturned chairs, holding a stranger's phone against my ear, while everyone around me shouted for an ambulance. Less than 30 seconds earlier, the dark-haired woman had walked through the rain wearing a tailored black coat, ordered an espresso, looked directly at me as though she recognized me, and collapsed before the cup touched her hand. Now blood ran from a cut above her eyebrow, her breathing was shallow, and a calm female voice was warning me to lie to her. "Who are you?" I whispered. "Check the inside of her coat, left side, there's a hidden pocket. She needs medical help." She was poisoned. If the people coming through that door find what she's carrying, medical help won't matter. Through the front window, I saw an ambulance turning onto the street. The caller continued, "You have 20 seconds, Lena." My stomach tightened. "How do you know my name?" "Your work badge is hanging from your neck. Stop asking questions and move." I crouched beside the unconscious woman, pretending to check her pulse while sliding my hand inside her coat. My fingers found a seam, then a small hidden zipper. Inside was a thin blue memory card sealed in plastic. "I found something. Put it in your shoe." "Absolutely not. Then put it somewhere they won't search first." The cafe doors opened. 2 paramedics entered without a stretcher. Neither of them looked at the injured woman's face. Their eyes went straight to her coat. The taller one asked, "Who touched her belongings?" Every instinct I had told me something was wrong. I slipped the card beneath the insole of my boot and stood. "No one," I said. The man looked at the phone in my hand. "Is that hers?" "It's mine." He held out his palm. "Give it to me." The caller whispered, "Back exit, don't run until they tell you to stop." I backed toward the kitchen corridor. The fake paramedic took one step after me. "Miss," I said, "give me the phone." I turned and ran. I crashed through the kitchen, sent a metal tray spinning across the tiles, and burst into the alley as cold rain struck my face. Behind me, someone shouted, "Grab her." A black car stopped so suddenly beside the curb that its tires sprayed water against the wall. The rear door opened. "Get in," the voice said through the phone, and from inside the car at the same time. The woman behind the wheel had silver threaded through her dark hair and the expression of someone who had never repeated an instruction in her life. I climbed in because the 2 men had just appeared at the end of the alley. The car accelerated before I had fully closed the door. "Who are you?" I demanded. "Adrian Cross, head of Serena Vale's security." "Serena is the woman on the floor?" "Yes, you left her there." "The real ambulance entered through the front 11 seconds after you escaped. My team has her." I looked back through the rain-blurred window. "Then take me home." Adrian's eyes met mine in the mirror. "I can't." "You can. Turn the car around." "The men behind us photographed your face. That sounds like your problem. You have the card. You told me to take it. And now it's the only reason they won't stop looking for you." I pressed my heel down against the hidden card. "Then take it." Serena trusted no one else with it. She didn't trust me. She doesn't even know me. Adrian's expression changed slightly. "That is the first thing we need to understand." My name is Lena Hart, and before that afternoon, my greatest crisis had been deciding which bill I could pay late without losing electricity. I worked as a freelance audiobook proofreader, which meant I spent 10 hours a day listening to other people fall in love while correcting their pronunciation notes and eating cereal for dinner. My mother had died when I was 9. My father had disappeared before I learned how to remember him, and I had built a small, careful life in which nothing exciting happened, because exciting things usually came with consequences. Then I answered a stranger's phone, and by midnight I was sitting in a private medical suite at the top of Vale Tower, guarded by 2 armed women while Serena Vale slept behind a glass door. I knew who she was by then. Serena was the founder of Vale Archive, a company famous for recovering deleted evidence from corrupt corporations and exposing people who assumed money could erase history. Newspapers called her ruthless. Business magazines called her brilliant. The internet mostly discussed her suits. When she finally woke, Adrian led me into the room. Serena sat upright against white pillows, her long black hair loose around her shoulders, a bandage above one eyebrow. Her gray-blue eyes settled on me with uncomfortable focus. "You took something from my coat," she said. "You're welcome." A faint smile touched her mouth. "Adrian said you were cooperative." "Adrian lies, only when necessary. She kidnapped me. She protected you, without asking." Serena looked at Adrian. "Leave us." Adrian hesitated, then stepped outside. Serena waited until the door closed. "Where is the card?" "Somewhere secure." "Your boot." My face betrayed me. Her smile deepened. You keep shifting your weight away from your right foot. You're very annoying for someone who almost died. I've been told near-death experiences can change a person. Apparently mine made me observant. What's on the card? Her expression cooled. A recording someone has spent 15 years trying to bury. Who? My father. That answer was not what I expected. Serena turned toward the dark window. Marcus Vale built his fortune through a medical data company before I founded Vale Archive. 15 years ago, employees discovered he had sold confidential patient records to private research groups. Some of those patients were enrolled in experimental trials without understanding what they had agreed to. People were hurt. A few died. The investigation disappeared, witnesses changed their stories, and one woman who collected evidence was killed in what police called a traffic accident. Something cold moved through me. Why are you telling me this? Serena looked back at me. Because the woman was named Lena Hart. For a second, I heard nothing, not the air conditioning, not the traffic below, not even my own breathing. That was my mother's name. I know. I crossed the room before I realized I was moving. How long have you known? That she worked for my father. 3 weeks, that she was your mother, not until Adrian identified you. And the card might contain her final statement. My legs felt weak. I sat in the nearest chair. For years, I had remembered my mother's death as a rainy road, a police officer kneeling in front of me, and my aunt saying accidents did not need reasons. Now a stranger with a bandage above her eye was telling me there had been one. Serena reached for the water beside her bed, but her hand shook slightly. I noticed before she could hide it. Are you afraid of him? I asked. My father. Yes. Serena lifted the glass. I'm afraid of what people become when they realize the truth is no longer under their control. That wasn't my question. Her eyes met mine over the rim. Then yes. It was the first moment she stopped looking untouchable. I removed my boot, pulled out the card, and held it between 2 fingers. We listened together. Lena, you brought my mother into this. You don't get to decide what I can handle. Serena watched me for a long second, then nodded. Together. The card was encrypted, and Adrian said it would take her team until morning to open it. That meant I had to stay inside the tower. Serena insisted it was for security. I told myself the same thing when I agreed. At 7 the next morning, I walked into the private kitchen and found Serena staring suspiciously at a coffee machine. She was wearing a dark sweater and loose black trousers instead of one of her famous suits. Without the armor of sharp tailoring, she looked younger and more tired. You own a technology company, I said, yet this machine has defeated you. It has 14 buttons and none of them say coffee. That one has a picture of a cup. It could be tea. You're making this harder than it is. That is also something I've been told. I stepped beside her and pressed the correct button. The machine hummed. Serena reached for a second mug. 2 shots, oat milk, half a teaspoon of honey. I looked at her. That's my order. You said it in the cafe. You were watching me before you collapsed. You were arguing with an audiobook through your headphones. The narrator pronounced epitome as epitome. I had every right. Serena's mouth curved. You looked furious. I was professionally disappointed. She poured milk into my mug, tasted it, frowned, and added honey. The gesture was unexpectedly domestic, and that made it feel more intimate than it should have. You don't have to make me coffee, I said. I know. Then why are you? Because last night I changed your life in one sentence. Her fingers tightened around the spoon. Coffee felt like the smallest possible apology. I accepted the mug. It's terrible. Serena looked offended. You haven't tasted it. I took a sip. It was perfect. Still terrible. Liar, you seem pleased with yourself. You're drinking it. Because I'm polite. You insulted me while I was hospitalized. I contain multitudes. She laughed quietly and the sound stopped me. It did not match the woman newspapers described. Serena noticed me staring. The laughter faded, but the warmth remained in her eyes. What? She asked. Nothing. You're blushing. The coffee is hot. So is the room. Don't ruin your apology. She leaned closer, close enough for me to catch the dark floral scent of her perfume. I'm trying to improve it. The kitchen door opened before I could answer. A tall woman with copper hair entered wearing a cream coat and immediately kissed Serena's cheek. You look alive, she said. Disappointing several people, Serena replied. The woman turned to me. And you must be Lena. I'm Camille Rowe, Serena's attorney and the only person she almost listens to. Camille's gaze moved between us, then paused on the mug Serena had made. She made you coffee? Badly, I said. Interesting. Serena gave her a warning look. Camille smiled. Very interesting. I hated how quickly irritation rose inside me. It was ridiculous. I had known Serena for less than a day, and the only thing between us was danger, shared evidence, and one moment in a kitchen that might have meant nothing. Camille sat at the island and opened a folder. Marcus knows the card survived. He's claiming Serena stole proprietary data and plans to have her removed from Vale Archive before she can release anything. Can he? I asked. He controls enough board members to try. Serena poured herself coffee without adding anything. Let him. Camille's expression sharpened. If you release the files without verification, you lose the company, your accounts will be frozen, and you could be charged with corporate theft. If I wait, he'll destroy witnesses. You always choose the most expensive version of morality. Serena looked at me when she answered. Some things are expensive because people spent years convincing us they were not worth paying for. The room went quiet. That should have reassured me, but a new question had formed. Was Serena helping me because it was right, or because destroying her father had always been her plan? The card was opened shortly after noon. It contained 3 files. The first was a list of trial participants. The second was a ledger connecting Marcus Vale to private clinics. The third was an audio recording dated 2 days before my mother's death. Adrian played it in Serena's study while rain tapped softly against the windows. My mother's voice filled the room, older than I remembered and yet instantly familiar. She spoke carefully, naming doctors, dates, payment amounts, and patients who had never been told their medical information was being sold. Then her tone changed. Serena, if you are hearing this, it means I was wrong about your father being willing to stop. You are only 9 now, so you may never hear it, but I have watched you ask questions he does not like. One day you may be brave enough to ask the right one. I turned toward Serena. She had gone completely still. She knew you. Serena's face had lost all color. My mother used to take me to the clinic after school. Her voice was barely audible. Elise gave me books while she worked. I remembered her face, but not her surname. My mother continued, there is one person I trust with the rest of the evidence. Her name is Mara Quinn. The recording ended. Adrian immediately began searching for Mara. Serena left the room without speaking. I found her 20 minutes later in a dim archive gallery on the lower floor, standing in front of a display of recovered letters. You were 9, I said. You couldn't have done anything. I told my father she asked too many questions. Serena did not turn around. I was angry because she canceled a visit to the aquarium. 2 days later, your mother died. You were a child. Children can still hand monsters information. That doesn't make the monster's choices yours. Her shoulders rose with a slow breath. You should hate me. I barely know you well enough. You're trying to make me feel better. I'm trying to stop you from making my mother's death about your guilt. That made her turn. Pain had stripped away every trace of her usual control. Then tell me what you need. The truth, all of it, even when you think it will hurt me. Serena stepped closer. And if the truth is that I haven't stopped thinking about you since I woke up. My pulse stumbled. That sounds inconvenient. Extremely. You almost died yesterday. I'm recovering quickly. You may have a concussion. I asked the doctor, attraction is not a symptom. Despite myself, I smiled. Serena's gaze dropped to my mouth, and the air between us tightened. You're doing it again, I said. Doing what? Looking at me like you already know what happens next. I rarely know what happens around you. Good. I stepped around her. It's healthy for you. I made it 3 steps before she caught my wrist, not hard, only enough to make me stop. Camille and I were never together, she said. I looked over my shoulder. I didn't ask. You glared at her for 11 consecutive seconds. I was evaluating her coat. Did it offend you? Deeply. Serena's thumb moved once against the inside of my wrist. The touch was small, but it sent warmth through my entire body. You're jealous, she murmured. You're delusional. Possibly. She released me slowly. But not about this. Adrian found Mara that evening. She had been living under another name in a coastal town, moving every few months because Marcus's people were searching for her. Before we could contact her, someone cut power to the tower. The emergency lights came on, bathing the hallway in red. Serena grabbed my hand and pulled me into a secure room behind the study. The lock sealed behind us. Thunder rolled over the city, and Serena flinched. It was subtle, but I felt it through her fingers. You're afraid of storms, I said. I dislike loud, unpredictable noise. That is a very expensive way to say afraid. Another crack of thunder shook the windows. Serena's grip tightened. My mother died during a storm, she admitted. My father refused to leave a board meeting. I sat alone outside the hospital room until a nurse found me. The powerful woman everyone feared stood beside me in the red emergency light, still holding my hand as though she had forgotten she was doing it. I moved closer. You don't have to pretend with me. Serena's eyes searched mine. That may be the most dangerous thing anyone has offered me. More dangerous than your father. Much more. Why? Because I know how to fight him. Her free hand rose slowly and brushed a strand of hair away from my face. I don't know how to fight this. Maybe stop fighting. I kissed her before I could lose my nerve. For 1 second, Serena did not move. Then her hand slid behind my neck and she kissed me back with a hunger that made the room feel smaller. Her body pressed close, warm and controlled only by effort. I felt her breath catch when my fingers curled into the front of her sweater. The kiss deepened, slow at first, then enough to make every thought dissolve. Serena backed me gently against the wall but paused before touching me again. Tell me if this is too much. It is. Lena. Serena, if you stop now, I may become violent. She laughed against my mouth and then kissed me again. Her hand settled at my waist, her thumb moving beneath the edge of my sweater, barely touching skin, but enough to send heat rushing through me. When we finally separated, both of us were breathing too quickly. Serena rested her forehead against mine. This is a terrible time to want you, she whispered. Your timing has been terrible since the café. Do you regret answering? Ask me when the building stops being attacked. The power returned 2 minutes later, so did reality. Adrian entered with news that Mara had agreed to meet, but only if I came without Serena. That should have been the moment I trusted the promise Serena had made in the gallery. Instead, while preparing to leave, I overheard her speaking with Camille through the half-open study door. Lena cannot know I recognized Elise's voice before we decrypted the file, Serena said. Not yet. I stopped breathing. Camille answered, You told her you didn't remember the surname. I lied. Why? Because Elise gave me a copy of the participant list when I was 12. I hid it, then gave it to my father when he threatened to send my mother away. I didn't just mention questions when I was 9. I helped him find the evidence 3 years later. My hand went cold around the doorframe. Serena continued, her voice breaking. If Lena knows before Marcus is stopped, she will leave, and he will use her to get the card. I stepped into the room. So you kept me close because I was useful. Serena turned, horror replacing every other expression. Lena, you promised me the truth. I was going to tell you. After what? After another kiss? After I trusted you enough that leaving became harder? I kept you here because you were in danger, and because you needed my mother's evidence. At first, she admitted, the honesty came too late. But not after. Don't. My voice shook. Do not use what happened between us to soften this. Serena took 1 step forward. I stepped back. That stopped her more effectively than any weapon. I'm sorry, she said. I know that isn't enough. For once, we agree. I left with Adrian and met Mara without Serena. Mara gave us the final evidence, including a video showing Marcus ordering the destruction of trial records. She also told me Serena had spent 10 years secretly rebuilding every file she had helped her father erase. She's guilty of being afraid as a child, Mara said, and guilty of lying to you now. Those are not the same crime. You're defending her. No. I'm giving you the whole truth because she didn't. Before we could leave, Marcus's men found us. Adrian drove while I held the evidence drive against my chest. A black vehicle struck us at an intersection, spinning the car across the wet road. The airbag exploded. My ears rang. Through the cracked window, I saw 2 men approaching. Then another car slammed between us. Serena stepped out before it had fully stopped. She had no security team, only a phone in one hand and a metal tire bar in the other. The evidence has already been uploaded, she shouted. Every news organization, every regulator, every victim's attorney. Touch her, and you add attempted murder to a story the entire country is watching live. One of the men raised his weapon. Serena did not move. Police sirens closed in from every direction. The men ran. Later, I learned Serena had released not only the files against her father, but every protected archive Vale had collected, including documents that proved she had stolen corporate data. She lost control of her company that night. Her accounts were frozen. She was arrested for 6 hours and released pending investigation. She had destroyed the thing she spent her adult life building, so Marcus could not threaten me with it. That did not erase her lie, but it changed the question from whether she loved me to whether love was enough to rebuild trust. 3 weeks passed before I saw her again. I attended the first public hearing into the Vale medical trials and found Serena sitting alone in the back row. No expensive suit, no assistants, no company waiting outside. Afterward, she stood when she saw me but did not approach. You look tired, I said. I've recently discovered public transportation. Was it traumatic? A child spilled juice on me. You survived poisoning. Barely. I almost smiled. Serena's expression remained careful. I won't ask you to forgive me. Good. I wanted you to know the charges against you were dropped. Your mother's name has been cleared, and the victims' fund is being established. I know. Mara said you're helping manage it. She also said you refused a position. Serena looked toward the courthouse steps. It should belong to the people my family harmed. And what will you do? Start again, smaller, more honestly. She turned to leave. For the first time since meeting her, Serena Vale was not trying to control the ending. That was what made me stop her. Serena. She looked back. I'm still angry. I know, trust is going to take longer than attraction. I know, and you are never hiding something for my protection again. I know, you say that a lot now. I've had time to practice. I walked closer until only a breath separated us. One chance. Serena's composure cracked. Lena, one, if you lie to me again, I disappear so completely even Vale Archive couldn't recover me. I understand. And you're buying coffee. Every day. Don't push it. Her hand lifted but stopped before touching my face, waiting. I closed the distance myself. The kiss was softer than the one in the secure room, but deeper in a way that had nothing to do with urgency. Serena's fingers settled carefully at my waist. When I drew her closer, she exhaled my name against my lips, and the sound carried relief, desire, and something that finally felt like honesty. 6 months later, we returned to the cafe where everything began. Serena had built a smaller evidence recovery nonprofit. I worked beside Mara, helping families understand the records connected to the trials. Serena and I were not perfect. She still tried to solve arguments with strategy. I still used sarcasm when frightened. But she told me the truth even when it made her look terrible, and I learned that forgiveness was not pretending something never happened. It was deciding what happened next. Serena ordered espresso. I ordered 2 shots with oat milk and half a teaspoon of honey. You know, I said, none of this would have happened if I hadn't answered your phone. Serena looked amused. That wasn't my phone. I stared at her. What? It belonged to one of my father's men. I took it at the train station after he tried to switch the card. Adrian called that number because she knew I had it. So I really answered a stranger's phone. Yes. You waited 6 months to tell me. Serena's smile disappeared. I only learned this morning. I studied her face, searching for the old hesitation. There was none. She had told me immediately. I reached across the table and took her hand. Good answer. My own phone began ringing beside my coffee. The number was unknown. Serena and I looked at it together. Once, I would have answered without thinking. Once, she would have ordered me not to. Instead, she squeezed my fingers and asked, "What do you want to do?" I let the phone ring twice more, then turned it face down. For today, I said, leaning across the table to kiss her. I think one stranger changed my life enough.